Dialogue is defined as a two-way communication between people who hold significantly different views on a subject, with the purpose of learning more truth of the subject from one another. In our world, many social conflicts and misunderstandings are caused by a lack of interreligious and multicultural dialogue. Dialogue is not a debate. The goal isn't to prove that you're right and the other person is wrong. The goal of dialogue is that all participants learn and change, abandon their misconceptions, and reflect on their inner selves and their relationship with others. Successful dialogue requires that each person has an openness to learn from each other and knowledge of their own tradition. Anyone can be involved in a dialogue, and everyone should. I'm very glad that Nazareth College and Dr. Shafiq, through this class, have given me the opportunity to learn how to engage in successful and respectful dialogue between people of different cultures and spiritualities. I believe that this is a skill that anyone can benefit from and that everyone should learn. As a child care worker, I interact with families from a variety of different cultural and religious backgrounds. With the skills I have learned from this class, I am now better able to connect with my students and their families. I can connect with them in the ways that are the most important and personal: their culture, their spirituality, their values, and their traditions. A huge part of dialogue is allowing yourself to be vulnerable. You have to go in knowing that your views of the world around you are going to be challenged and likely changed. You have to understand when being brought into another person's culture that you are not going to know everything. It's okay not to know. It can feel intimidating or embarrassing. You can be afraid to ask questions because you're afraid of sounding embarrassing or offensive or ignorant. That's a fear that has held me back in the past. It's prevented me from fully experiencing new things and new cultures because I was afraid to ask and get help in creating a better understanding for myself. My biggest fear when going into this class was stepping on toes or making myself look foolish because I didn't know something that I felt like I should. However, the amazing thing about the guides that spoke with us was that they wanted us to ask those questions, and they didn't mind if we said something unusual or bold. They invited us into their culture just for an hour or an hour and a half, and it leaves an impact that lasts far longer than the time that they spent with us. They wanted us there so that we could learn and so that we could engage in that dialogue with them and exchange our ideas and come to a better understanding of each other. Every person has something that they can learn when going into a new situation, and you have to be open to admitting that you're wrong, and you have to ask those questions that you're afraid are going to sound foolish. I'm very honored that I had the opportunity to travel to these amazing cultural and religious sites, and to have the privilege of learning about these new cultures from the people who live in them every day. It doesn't matter what spirituality you follow, but when you walk into a place of worship, whether it's yours or someone else's, you feel an overwhelming sense of connection. You feel connected to the people around you, even if you've never met them before, and even if you never do meet them and just see one another in passing. And you feel connected to the greater purpose and the greater power that surrounds that area. Every time I visited a place of worship, I felt something stronger than myself. Standing in front of the shrines and statues and artwork, I felt like I was meeting these deities for the first time. I felt an overwhelming sense of spiritual intimacy between myself and those around me, and between myself and the greater power, and the greater powers of those who were there with me. It was overwhelming and transformative. I received a new understanding of what it really meant to feel connected, and to feel connected to other people on a new spiritual level. And I felt very honored to be welcomed into these communities and to have the chance to learn from them and exchange views and ideas with them, and to feel like a more bold and well-rounded person after having this experience. My fear of looking foolish has been replaced by a strong desire and will to learn. I would rather risk sounding ignorant and being corrected rather than to continue on my path living with misconceptions and misinformation. Each trip we took as a class helped to bring me one step closer to understanding what it truly means to live in a multicultural society. I think one of the reasons why there's so much intolerance and prejudice is because of a lack of dialogue and a lack of understanding other people. Knowing how to learn from another person is an indispensable and invaluable skill. I think it's one that every person should be able to hone and work at and develop. We are all capable of learning something valuable from every single person we talk to. Now that I've gained the skill of engaging in meaningful dialogue, I feel like I'm better equipped to form deeper connections with the people around me. I feel like my social skills and my social courage have experienced a huge increase. I'm more open to being vulnerable and exposing that I'm wrong about something so that I can learn. It can be frightening to try something new and go somewhere that you've never been, in a place that's so personal and sacred to another person. It's intimidating and it can be scary, and that's exactly why I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to do it. Each visit taught me something indispensable and invaluable. I learned how to talk to people who are different from me and to find common beliefs and values. I learned to make my view of the world around me more flexible, and to understand that those views are subject to change and that they have to change in order for me to grow as a person and to be a better global citizen. I learned about the history of religious and cultural intolerance in this country, and I learned how to combat that. I learned how to ask the right questions and how to exchange ideas respectfully while standing firm in my beliefs, and also knowing that they're meant to change and meant to grow. I learned that dialogue isn't just about religion. It's about everything from culture to race to gender and to sexuality. I learned more about our history as a nation made up of people from a variety of different cultures and backgrounds. I learned not only how to understand history, but also how to prevent myself from being complicit in its repetition. I understand the mistakes that have been made in the past, and I feel like through this class I've learned to catch myself falling into harmful patterns and to put myself back on the track to being a more socially responsible person. There's always something you can learn. Every single person comes from a unique walk of life, and if you're lucky, you can cross paths with someone so drastically different from you so that you have the chance to learn from them and teach them and walk together. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to stand with people in spaces that are so sacred and personal to them, and to have a chance to be invited into their world and to experience it the way that they do.